Hi, welcome to Teton Full Circle Farm. I'm Ken Michael, and this is Erika Eschholz. And today we're going to talk to you about starting your seedlings. We're going to begin by talking about where to start your seedlings. Secondly, deciding what seedlings you want to start. What to plant your seeds in. What soil medium you want to plant them in. Then following seed starting specifics. And finally, some long-term kind of management for those specific seedlings.
Alright, so where to start your seedlings? We recommend either starting your seedlings in a heated greenhouse, like this, or smaller, under grow lights in your house, or in front of a south window in your house.
Yeah, today we're fortunate enough to have a heated greenhouse, so that's where we'll be starting our seeds today.
Okay, what seeds are best to start early? A few common things that are nice to start early are things like leeks, onions, broccoli, head lettuce, bok choy, and basil.
One reason we like to start our seedlings early is because it gives us a chance to get nice, healthy, vigorous plants going well before our garden beds are ready. So today we'll be planting joy choy, bok choy. And as you can see, there's still tons of snow out in the fields. So they won't be ready for another month still. But 4 weeks ahead of our planting date is perfect.
And Ken, I just want to interject that we're going to have a really thorough list of what is suggested to start early and what's suggested to start just directly, that is direct seed, in your garden attached to this video. Next, we're going to talk about what to plant your seeds in. I have a few examples here. You can use pretty much whatever you have around the house. Maybe you have some old pots that you can recycle and trays laying around the house. You can even use a cut-off milk carton to plant your seeds in. Two things you want to remember is that you need to have drainage in whatever you plant your seeds in, and then you need to have some form of tray. Whether it's a tray with holes or a tray without holes, depending on where you're going to grow your plants. In your home, you're going to want a tray without holes so it doesn't leak all over the floor when you go to water. So something like that.
So today for our bok choy, we're going to be using these 72 plug flats. You can find these at Johnny's Seeds. They also have 50 plug flats if you're not starting as many seeds. For a home gardener, a tray like this is about being 72 flats could be a lot. You're not going to grow 72 bok choy, probably. But what you can do is say plant 2 rows of kale, cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, fennel, and kohlrabi, or something like that. So that would fill up a whole flat and it would give you about the right amount that you want to plant in your home garden. So we'll be planting into this 72 flat today, and beneath it we'll put in the shallow germination tray, and this is one of the trays with holes in the bottom for drainage because we are in a greenhouse.
Okay, what to use for your seed starting mix? We recommend using a potting mix that has some worm castings and or compost in it. And you can find on the back of the bag that you're shopping for the potting mix, you can find the ingredients and just look down to make sure it has one of those 2 things in it. We also recommend that it's OMRI certified. That is, that the Organic Materials Review Institute has put their stamp of approval on it, and then it's safe for growing organically.
So our seedling mix today is going to be the Black Gold Organic Potting Soil. And what we did is we took our own compost and added about 1 part compost per 3 parts of the Black Gold potting soil and mixed those up in a trough. And so that's what we're going to fill our trays with today. So when it comes to planting your seeds, what we do is we fill our trays with soil.
Okay.
Nice and even. And when you fill these, it's important not to overfill them right away, because when you go to water them later on, You don't want it overflowing and then all the soil just washing off either onto the floor of your greenhouse or making a mess in your house. Okay, so that's nice and even. So once we have our trays filled with soil, we'll read the seed packet for specific seed information, which Erika will talk about.
Okay, next we're going to talk about how to plant your seeds. Number one is to read the back of the seed package. And if your seed package doesn't have very good information on it, we recommend you go to the Johnny's Seed website, and they have great information on growing every plant that you can imagine. Very important to remember that each seed has very specific growing instructions. They are not all created equal. So you want to get this information, and if you can't get it on the back of the seed package, go to Johnny's website to get it.
Right. And these seeds today, the bok choy, happen to be from Johnny's Seeds. So on the back of the packet, they have lots of information. The main things that we're looking for today are the planting depth, which is 1/8 to 1/4 inch. We also want to know how many seeds per hole we should plant. And to do that, we look at the germination percentage, and this is 99% germination, and it's seeds from this year. So that means that every seed should germinate just fine for us. Sometimes we'll plant 2 or 3 per hole if we have a lower germination rate, like 85% or something like that. The last thing we're looking at the seed packet for is the temperature of germination. Some seeds need to germinate at higher temps, like 75 degrees for things like tomatoes, peppers, or basil. But in the case of bok choy, they can germinate at just about any temperature from the 50s all the way up into around 80 degrees. So we'll be planting them at 1/8 of an inch and no other special considerations. So when we go to plant, we're going to start by making holes in our tray, and I just use my fingertips to lightly press down a little depression about 1/4 inch deep. With bok choy or head lettuce or something, in the cabbage family, like cabbage or kohlrabi or kale, you have a little bit more room for error here, and you can actually plant a little bit deeper or a little bit shallower. They're very vigorous seeds. So the next step is I'll just take a little handful, and since these are in the brassica family, they're really round little mustard seeds, so it's really easy to just roll one at a time out into each hole. Every so often, 2 seeds will drop into a hole, and that's no big deal. That'll just be a little extra security in case they don't have perfect germination.
While Ken is planting, I'm going to show you a few other options. If your seeds are tiny, you might consider getting one of these little seeders. It has varying size of holes, and you can put your seeds in and then choose which hole represents just a little bigger than your seed, and then you can use that to tap the seeds in, and they fall out nice and slowly. If you don't want to invest in this, we didn't get one of these till this year, you might just use a little top of a lid from a jar to pluck your seeds out of, and you can also use a pair of tweezers if they're really small seeds. And then lastly, you're going to want to label your seed tray very well, whether it's just one pot. You definitely want to label them because you'll forget what they were.
Okay, so as we wrap up this tray here, we'll take our extra seeds from our hand, and you can just scoop them right back up into your seed packet, and these packets are resealable, so it's super easy just to keep some around for your next round of seedlings.
And I put the seed company name, the date, and the variety on my marker.
Okay, so the last step we have here is to cover our seedlings. So I'd like to just sprinkle a little bit more soil on top, and then really gently just kind of sweep that soil over the top. I want to make sure that there isn't anything kind of catching in the holes that'll disturb the seeds and kind of pop them out of their holes. So I'm just being really light and gentle just to bring it out over the top. And then extra soil can go away. And that's our seed flat. So this will take maybe 4 to 7 days to germinate, depending on your temperatures. It's usually around 4 or 5. And then this is what it should look like in about 2 weeks. This was planted 14 days ago. So that's how we plant our bok choy.
All right, and then lastly, we'd just like to talk about extended care considerations. You may consider having a heat mat under your seedlings. This is kind of a homemade heat mat with a heat cable attached to a piece of wood, and we plug that in, and that typically generates about 70 degrees of temperature, which will warm the soil. Plants like tomatoes, basil, and peppers would require something like that. You want to consider your watering needs of your plants. We like to keep the soil moist until we plant it out into the field. So daily watering. You don't want to oversaturate, but we want the soil to remain moist for the duration of the seedling's life. Days to germination. You want to consider how many days did the seed packet say it would take for your little seedlings to pop up, so that you can anticipate those days. And like parsley, for example, takes maybe up to 20 days to germinate. So you know that it'll come, and you haven't destroyed anything, that it'll come along. And then you might want to consider covering your seedlings with a dome, something like this, to keep the humidity in as those guys are trying to germinate. You can also use a smaller one. And especially if you're planting in your home where it might be really dry, a dome is often recommended just until they pop up. And then lastly, you'll want to consider when to harden off your plants. Usually after they've developed quite a few of their true leaves is when we take them outside to harden off. And actually we'll talk about that more in our next video.
Great, so that's how we start our seeds here at Teton Full Circle Farm. Please get in touch with any other questions you might have, but otherwise, thanks for watching and happy gardening.